First of all, hi, my name is Shan. Thank you so much for coming here today. I'm going to do a little bit of a chat today about kind of the versatility of gin. My background is very much bartending. I now have the truly awful job of travelling up and down the country talking about Caorunn gin and Old Pulteney whiskey for a living. Yeah, it's a really tough job. But yeah, I love it. And part of my job is to go into bars and restaurants and talk to bartenders and talk to restaurateurs about how to use our products in a myriad of ways. So I am from a bartending background. Up until this year, I worked behind bars for like too long. And one of the things that I have always enjoyed doing is making drinks, making cocktails, and playing around with flavours. So when I moved down to Edinburgh, I've lived in Aberdeen for a long time, I moved down to Edinburgh to help open a gin bar. And one of the things that I was very guilty of, and I think many people are very guilty of, is just assuming that the first thing you want to do with a gin is put some tonic in it. It's a classic pairing. It's great. Gin and tonic is fantastic. However, when I first started drinking gin, or when I was first trying gin, should I say, and people were automatically giving me a gin and tonic, I was like, oh no, I don't like this. I don't like gin. That's where my head went. Of course I was wrong. Everyone likes gin. They just might not know it yet. But the thing is that tonic generally is quite bitter, especially when I first started drinking gin before everything changed and this amazing gin boom kind of happened. All I was kind of privy to was Gordon's and Schweppes tonic, which generally a good pairing, but a very bitter pairing. So I kind of moved on. Somebody gave me a gin and lemonade and it blew my mind. I was just like, what is this deliciousness that you've introduced me to? So as we're chatting here, this is a Caorunn and tonic, Fever Tree tonic with a slice of red apple. This is Caorrunn's suggested serve. Now there's the word that gets thrown around, perfect serve. Perfect for whom? I don't know. So I'm going to say suggested serve is my choice of phrase. Yeah, so I started drinking gin and lemonade. Then as I kind of grew up and my palate changed a little bit, I moved on to gin and soda. And then I kind of trained myself into liking gin and tonic from there. However, what I wanted to do was kind of today show off Caorunn gin in all of its glory with 3 different ways that you can drink it. So the first drink you're going to have is the very classic Caorunn tonic and apple. The second drink is going to be a white Negroni. Now a Negroni, generally again, a very bitter style of drink. And then the third one is just another very simple serve, but with a bit of a twist. But I'll kind of talk to you as we go through them. So first of all, I'm just going to talk you a little bit through Caorunn and its background and why it's kind of so versatile and why gin generally is very versatile. So Caorunn has been out since 2009. It was kind of one of the first Scottish gins to come out. Does anybody know why 2009 is a significant year in the gin world? Excellent. So in 2009, there was a law changed that had been in place for 250 years, where anything that was distilled had to be distilled in batches no smaller than 1,500 litres. That is an incredible amount of alcohol. In 2009, that law was changed. Thank you to Sipsmith Gin for getting that changed. And they got that law changed so that now you can pretty much distill in any size batch that you so wish, which has now led to this gin boom that we are now in, because you can create things on a much smaller basis, meaning a much more kind of handcrafted, more loved kind of product. So Caorunn is made in an old whiskey distillery. The whiskey distillery has been there since 1824, hence the date on the bottle, slightly misleading for a gin that has only been out since 2009. But the distillery has been around since 1824, hence the date on the bottle. Now our distiller, Simon, his background is gamekeeping. So his ethos has very much always been find it yourself, do it yourself, make it yourself as much as physically possible. So when they were looking into making a gin, he wanted to create a gin that used botanicals from the local area to create a point of difference. As far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, when Caorunn came out in 2009, it was kind of the first gin to be doing that. So that kind of made us stand out. So we have 6 very classic gin botanicals that you'll find in the majority of gins. These include Juniper, obviously the one thing that must be in every gin. We then have 3 kind of citrusy elements. We've got coriander seed, which if you've ever used in cooking, gives a very kind of florally citrus note. We have orange peel and lemon peel. And then we've got cassia bark, which is a much more cinnamony version of cinnamon when it's distilled. And then we have angelica root, which is literally the root of a flower which binds all the flavours together. But you'll find them in the majority of gins. Our 5 Scottish botanicals are what makes us stand out. 5 botanicals from Scotland, 5-sided bottle, 5-point asterisk, pentagram on the bottom. Do you see where I'm going with this? They're all about the lucky number 5. So, one of which is apple, Caorunn blush apple, a very small, intensely sweet red apple. So we serve our gin and tonics with a slice of red apple. Caorunn itself, the word, is the Gaelic word for rowanberry. Well, the Gaelic word for rowan. Rowanberry is one of our botanicals again. And also, if you've ever seen a fresh rowanberry, it's kind of got an asterisk on the bottom of it. It's another reason that they use the asterisk. And we then also use bog myrtle, dandelion, and heather. So Caorunn is a very good all-rounder when it comes to gin. There's the citrus, there's the juniper, there's the spice from the cassia bark, there's the savoury. It's just a really good kind of all-round gin. It's also a vapour-infused gin. You know the difference between, well, there's 2 ways to make gin: maceration and vapour infusion. Maceration is when you get all of your botanicals, stick them in the alcohol, boil them up, that's your gin. Vapour infusion, same alcohol, but they'll have a basket above the alcohol where the botanicals sit. As the alcohol boils up, vapour comes off, picks up the flavours of the botanicals that way, condenses back into a liquid, and that's your gin. So Caorunn is the only gin in the world to be made in a still called a copper berry chamber, which is a vapour-infused style of gin, but instead of having 1 basket full of botanicals, it kind of looks like a steamer. We have like 4 layers of botanicals. So even though it's light and crisp and fresh in a vapour-infused style, we have 4 layers of botanicals, so it's picking up a lot of flavour that way. So it's kind of a really nice mix, again, of kind of modern style, old style. It's really kind of cool. It's a cool guy, this guy. Me and him spend a lot of time together. I really like him. So, as I was saying, slightly off topic, versatility of gin. So the second drink that you're going to be getting is a white Negroni. Now, a classic Negroni is gin, Campari, which is a bitter orange liqueur, and sweet vermouth. Very bitter. It's literally a stirred down, super boozy drink. It's almost like a bartender handshake. If you go into a bar and be like, "Hi, I'd like a Negroni, please," chances are they're going to be like, "What bar do you work in?" Because most people, the first time they ever have a Negroni, will be like, "Are you sure this drink is right? This is awful." But it's again an acquired taste. What I've done with the white Negroni is instead of using Campari, we've got a bitter liqueur called Suze, which uses gentian root instead of orange. It's very, very overpowering as gentian goes, actually, but it's a really lovely thing. And instead of sweet vermouth, we've got Rinquinquin, which is a peach vermouth. So it's just a slightly lighter, and Negroni is usually bright red. This is very clear, so it's just a different style of drink. So my thought process behind using this drink is just to show off again how you can mix gin in cocktails, and you can play off the different flavour profiles of each gin. It doesn't have to always be Caorunn, although obviously this is the best one to use. The thing with gin generally is that there's so many botanicals. Like there's gins out there that only use 4 botanicals. There's gins out there that use 47 botanicals. So there's so much flavour in there to play with that you can automatically just start picking out individual flavours and going towards them. So with the white Negroni, the peach works really well off the kind of sweet notes of the apple and the rowanberry within the Caorunn. But then the Suze with the gentian works really well. Obviously it's a type of root. We use the angelica root in the gin as well. And the kind of cinnamony, more savoury notes of the dandelion and the bog myrtle as well. So it's an interesting thing to play around with, all of these different flavours. Something about this drink may not be for everyone's tastes, but this is the other thing with gin and just cocktails generally, is that it's going to introduce you to a bunch of flavours that you might never have tried before. I can almost guarantee that none of you will have had this particular drink before, because it's two unusual things with the Caorunn. Who's a fan and who's not a fan? Fan? Fan. Oh, good. That's actually more than I thought. Weird. Weird is an interesting taste.
It's really weird.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's really tasty. So yeah, this is something I found with Caorunn, because it's a very light, very crisp style of gin. If you put Caorunn into a normal Negroni, it would get totally lost under the Campari and under the sweet vermouth. But because this is a lighter style of Negroni, it just helps play off the gin as well. But this is the type of thing that me and my loser friends will do in the house. We'll make the same drink with 4 different gins, or 4 different rums, or 4 different tequilas, to see which flavour profiles work well in each drink. Honestly, you should come to my house. I have a lot of alcohol to be drunk. People buy me alcohol as presents a lot, and I don't really drink in the house very often. I like to go out and see my pals. So yeah, just shimmy on round. I'll be in all day tomorrow, recovering from today. Yeah, that's the type of thing that we like to do, is find the different flavour profiles which go with each gin and run with them. That's also the joy with going to try a new gin or try a new product in a bar, is that you can go and try these things without having to buy an entire bottle of it. And things like today, when else do you get to come and try 20 different gins in one space? Excellent choice. But again, the downside to drinks like this is that chances are you probably won't make them at home, because you probably aren't going to have a huge amount of Suze or Ring Quin Quin kicking about your house, unless you're me. So the third drink that I've decided to come up with today is probably my favourite way of drinking Caorunn that isn't with a tonic. So it's Caorunn gin, fresh pressed apple juice, and just garnished with a fresh raspberry. Ready-made cocktail in a glass. Again, obviously, we know that Caorunn and apple are classic pairing. They work really, really well together. But the raspberry is like an added bonus. The raspberry works in the same way as a rowan berry, in that rowan berries and raspberries, depending on where they're from and what time of year it is, they can either be super sweet or really sour. So it's kind of a fun one to play around with again, even with this one particular drink. Depending on the apple juice and depending on the raspberries, it can taste... What is going on? Taste... All right, yeah. Please don't crumble on us. Yeah, it can be 2 totally different drinks again. So at some point... Thanks, Jamie. Big fan of your work. Yeah, this is probably my personal favourite way of like just a classic serve, like that you can easily make in your house. Apple juice and raspberries. Super simple, super duper tasty. Like, really good one. We've got a punch at the stand if anyone's hanging around later and wants to come by the stand. We've got a delicious apple and elderflower punch for just a measly £4 available. Yes?
I completely agree.
It's so good, right? But yeah, it's very light, it's very crisp, and it's very delicious, which works really well with the characteristics of the Caorunn gin. And this is my favourite way of just a simple serve. Like, you don't need any citrus, you don't need any fancy cocktail equipment, but if you wanted to, you could just make a big punch bowl of this for your house. Again, if you've got folk round, easy serving, straight in a cup, and everyone is winning. Can I actually have one of these, please? No? Oh, did you not make enough for me? How rude. That's all right, I'll forgive you this one time. Yes. I shouldn't really be drinking, but I will. It's so good. So, my main kind of conclusion of the day is because, oh no, don't spill it. Because there are so many different flavour profiles to play with in each particular gin, like, please don't be afraid to play around with them. Thank you, I'm a massive fan. Cheers. Cheers. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, because there's so many different flavour profiles to play around with in each gin, like, please don't be afraid to play with your gin. Like, make cocktails with it. put it with different mixers. Like, don't, you go into a bar. When was the last time anybody went into a bar and said, "Can I please have a gin and apple juice?" I don't think I've worked in a gin bar. I don't think that's ever happened in the entire time that I worked there. But it makes sense, in the same way that your vodka is a flavourless, easily mixable drink. Gin, in the grand scheme of things, is a flavoured vodka. And there's so many flavours there to play with. Don't be afraid to. Caorunn is a really good one. It's very light, very crisp, very versatile. Obviously, the title of this talk. But there's so many different styles of gin. There's Old Tom gin, which is really sweet. There's Juniper. Has anyone actually ever tried Juniper? One or two. It's weird, right? It's kind of a mixture between gin and whiskey. It's like a malted barley base. There's London Dry. There's Hendrix. There's stuff like that. What's that word? Compounded. There's so many different gins to play with that each one will work with a myriad of mixers and work in a myriad of different cocktails. And that's why I love gin. That's why I moved to open a gin bar. I just love the versatility of it and the ability that we have to play around with things. I also would love to say that if you are in a bar drinking a gin cocktail, or any kind of cocktail, if you go to a bar and the cocktail is not quite to your preference, if it's too sweet or if it's too sour or whatever, please don't be afraid to go to the bar and ask them to change it. As somebody who's worked in a bar, if after you have finished your drink, you say, "Actually, I didn't really like that, I can't do anything about that to help." But if you take your first sip and you don't like it, and you go, "Actually, can you change that a little bit for me?" Any bartender worth their salt will 100% change it to make you happy. If you're buying a drink that's £7, £8, £9, you're going to want to make sure it's to your preference. Don't be afraid. If it's too sweet, they'll put a bit more citrus in it. If it's too sour, they'll put a bit more sugar in it. Just make yourself happy and do the right thing. Us Brits are too polite. We never complain enough. But it's not a complaint, it's just a preference. Please don't be afraid. And drink lots of gin and enjoy it. And thank you so much. Have a good day.